Natural disasters like the Japanese earthquake are notoriously hard to predict, even for risk consultants who specialize in catastrophe modeling. Now comes the job of estimating the losses and what it'll cost the insurance industry at the end of the day. For more, we're joined by Bill Keogh on the phone from Boca Grande, Florida. He is the president of one of those consulting firms, Eqecat. Bill, Katrina cost insurers $50 billion in losses. Is this going to be bigger than that?
Well, it's a little hard to tell. It's a little early to tell. What we think is that this will be at least $100 million of economic damage, and that could certainly rise. And we anticipate that the insured component of that will be less than 50%.
Okay, less than 50%. So let's assume for a moment that it's 100, slightly in excess of 100. For now, anyway, it looks as though the insurance industry might have to bear slightly lower losses than the Katrina number, but potentially higher.
Well, it's interesting. The component, the earthquake component, is going to be limited. Earthquake coverage in Japan is very expensive, and it's a very dear commodity. So insurance companies have very strict limitations on how much earthquake risk they'll take on. The other risks, it's a little bit harder to tell. So you have marine risk, you have automobile risk, you have life, and perhaps other components that might be insured that might not be excluded for the earthquake.
Why is it so difficult for everyone to predict exactly what kind of liability they may face? Munich Re, just one of the companies that so far refuses to say how much it might cost them.
Well, the situation is still unfolding. As you know, there have been over 100 aftershocks that have occurred since the main event. And the policies are very complex. And given the damage to infrastructure that we currently have, it's actually very hard to get on-the-ground intelligence. So understanding what facilities might have been damaged, the extent of the damage, will literally take weeks, perhaps months to find out.
Bill, how much of the cost of this quake do you think is going to be passed on to global insurers from the reinsurance industry and ultimately to corporate customers?
Yeah, very hard to tell. It will take a long time for this to work out. The larger the event, the more complex it becomes. And as you think about Hurricane Katrina, the World Trade Center, Hurricane Andrew, it took perhaps even 12 months to get total clarity on where the cost was borne.
I happened to be at a reinsurance conference over the weekend attended by a bunch of U.S. insurers, and their attitude was that one way or the other, this is going to be a catalyst for the reinsurance industry and ultimately the insurance industry to raise prices. Do you think that's fair?
Well, we're in the risk modeling business, so we obviously don't have a big say in that. But from our perspective, it's a matter of how much capital will be impaired. That seems to be the thing that drives that. But you know, again, we're not experts in that area.
But okay, a quick question then on risk modeling before we go. 8.9 is the magnitude measurement for this quake, and you talked about more than 100 aftershocks. Do your models suggest that Japan is still at risk of a fairly major quake, possibly even further south in the Tokyo area?
Well, certainly that's within the realm of possibility. To give you a sense of the likelihood of a magnitude of this size occurring, this in some cases has been classified as a 9-magnitude earthquake. There have been 5-magnitude earthquakes in the last 111 years in the world. Now, many of those occur in areas that are sparsely populated, but that would be once every 22 years. About 20% of the earthquake risk in the world for intense earthquakes is in Japan. So Japan is obviously a place where we can expect large, intense earthquakes.
Bill, thanks very much for joining us. Bill Keogh, he's the president of Eqecat. It's a catastrophe modeling firm.